The 94th Congregation for the Conferment of Honorary Degrees commences. 請起立 please rise. 奏國歌，請保持肅立並把帽子脫下。Please remain standing and take off your caps for the national anthem.
I declare this congregation open.
請就座 please be seated.
邓小华。
邓小华女士因事未能出席典礼。那城边上有一条黄泥街，我记得非常真切，但是他们都说没有这么一条街。我去找，穿过黄色的尘埃，穿过被尘埃蒙着的人影，我去找黄泥街。我逢人就问，这是不是黄泥街？所有的人都向我瞪着死鱼的眼珠。没人回答我的问题。我的影子在火热的柏油路上茫然地移动，太阳把我的眼眶内晒得焦干，眼珠像玻璃珠似的在眼眶里滞住了。我的眼珠大概也成了死鱼的眼珠。我还在费力地辨认着，跟着上述的我，踏上我在柏油路上的足迹，可以看到我在柏油路上的影子，但怎样从我的所见进入我的世界，了解我的所思，又怎样通过我解读叙述我的人，解开我的谜，从而解开由此引起心灵的谜。叙述上述我的人，就是邓小华女士。邓小华女士 原名邓泽梅。残雪是他走上文学之路后的笔名。祖籍湖阳耒阳，生于湖南长沙，是我国当代著名作家，从事小说创作、文学评论。邓女士笔名取名为残雪，有2层对立的含义，一个是高山顶上晶莹的白雪，另一个则是被污染和践踏的脏雪。她希望作品能将这2者统一起来，正好反映了她对于生命体验不懈追求，对精神世界无穷探索，对美好的向往，营造作品气质的独特性。邓女士在新湖南报及今天的湖南日报报社大院出生，年幼时在报社的宿舍和幼稚园度过，后来在长沙文化圈常被称为报社子弟。陆续从容，一天到晚散发着油墨香的院子，给他留下了人生最初的记忆。自小热爱阅读，除童话故事、中西古典文学作品外，也跟着父亲阅读大部头的哲学典籍，学会了哲学的思考方式。尽管早年生活困苦，他仍坚持白天工作，晚上自学英语，曾当上英语代课老师，翻译英文文学原著，阅读大量西方经典文学名著，包括卡夫卡等著名作家的作品，并深受影响。至于中国作品，他特别爱读《红楼梦》、鲁迅、野草等，努力通过创作把中西文化结合为一体，纵深挖掘，横向拓展，感受文化的魅力。短篇小说《污水里的肥皂泡》在1985年刊行在杂志《新创作》，这是邓女士首篇正式发表的作品。事实上，短篇小说《黄泥街》才是处女作。1983年开始创作，用了1年的时间，在1984年脱稿，当时已在长沙的作家圈子里传开了。黄泥街的发表颇费周折，当时许多作家都伸出过援手，最终在著名作家丁玲女士的大力支持下，黄泥街得以在文学刊物《中国》发表。1986年横空出世，引起文坛高度关注和重视。本赞词开头引用的那段文字，就是来自黄泥街。80年代中期，邓女士在全国大小刊物已发表了10多篇小说。从那时开始，写作成了她的第一职业，儿时梦想也由此开始实现。自创作《黄泥街》以来，至今出版9部长篇小说，逾100篇短篇小说，数十篇中篇小说、散文、评论等。早期作品如《山上的小屋》、《苍老的浮云》、《天堂里的对话》等，开创文学艺术的新风气，另辟蹊径，被誉为先锋派文学的代表，作为我国先锋小说的开端，引领新文学思潮。邓女士重视探索和创新的精神，注重发掘内心世界，用文学进行思想实验和哲学思考，探索心灵。无论在创作姿态还是手法技巧，都形成极具个人风格新实验写作。通过文学，她寻求创作题材和艺术方法的突破，用中国经验建构中国故事，塑造未来的新型人格的。正如他所说，艺术是最为符合人性与人道的，艺术也最具有普遍意义的。人类对于美的梦想，其本质就是爱。正因为充满了博爱，人才能在艺术的境界里超脱升华。他就是希望通过文学创作，唤起人对生命、 对理想的向往。邓女士的小说甫一发表就被海外读者所关注，她的作品翻译成外语，获海外知名出版社所出版，如美国的西北大学出版社、耶鲁大学出版社、霍特出版社、新方向出版社、公开新出版社、法国的加利马出版社、德国的鲁尔大学出版社、意大利的理论出版社、日本的合出书房新社、平凡社、加拿大的菲茨亨利与怀特赛德出版社等，也获海外期刊杂志所翻译刊载，如日本的《文艺春秋》、季刊《中国现代小说》、美国的《知识分子》、《经济学人》等。日本还成立了残血研究会，创办了残血研究杂志。邓女士的作品在国际文坛有很大的影响力，从她在国际所获得的肯定就可见一斑。如2015年获颁美国的最佳翻译图书奖，为我国作家获这个奖项第一人。同年入围英国独立报外国小说奖，还有入围美国的纽斯塔特国际文学奖。2019年再获美国的最佳翻译图书奖提名。2019年和2021年2度入围英国的布科国际奖。2021年获美国大他者文学终身成就奖。2022年获颁马来西亚的花中世界华文文学奖。同年获德国豪斯国际翻译文学奖提名。2024年获美国文学奖，这是首位获得这个终生成就殊荣的我国作家。主席阁下，邓小华女士笔下的文字充满了光明的照射，正因为心中有光明，她的作品起了改变心灵之效，呼唤读者一同加入心灵的探索，鼓舞读者对爱、对生命、对理想的向往，让读者感受到光辉的照射。经过数十年艰苦奋斗，他表现出独树一帜的文学风格和面貌，在国内外产生了巨大的影响力，为国际文坛带来了独特的魅力。为表扬邓女士在文坛的重要地位，本人谨恭请主席阁下颁授荣誉文学博士衔于邓小华女士。
主席阁下，请颁授荣誉文学博士学位予缺席者邓小华。
本人秉承大学所赋予的权利，授予缺职的邓小华荣誉文学博士学位。
Victor Joseph Dzau.
Medical researchers work across an extraordinary range of different levels, from the subcellular to massive population studies, because discoveries anywhere across that range may have profound implications for human health. The resulting interventions themselves extend across that same vast landscape. They could be genetic manipulations, or individually tailored biochemical therapies for diseases, common or rare, or an increased tax on sugary drinks. And the better we connect those dots and enrich that landscape, the more compelling the work becomes. Yet, however detailed our maps of science, there's a further dimension that the maps cannot capture, but that nonetheless determines whether all that accumulated knowledge delivers its real potential. We are fortunate that some scientists see that bigger picture and have the skills, diplomacy, advocacy, and awareness of the nuances of politics and society to bring it to life for the world outside their research labs. They connect key ideas to key people and weave discovery into daily living. They are the communicators who shape our future for the better. Professor Victor Dzau, whom we're delighted to have with us here today, elected to work on cardiovascular disease, the world's single greatest cause of mortality, and has become one of the world's preeminent scientist clinicians in that field. He also illustrates the kind of scope and breadth that I've just outlined. At the molecular and genetic level, he isolated the proteins and subsequently cloned the genes that cause hypertension, coronary artery disease, and congestive heart failure. That work laid the foundation for the development of some of the life-saving drugs now used to treat them, most notably including the ACE inhibitors, which are now used globally to help millions to lead longer and better lives. He also pioneered gene therapy for vascular disease and was the first to introduce DNA decoy molecules in humans in vivo, among many other breakthroughs. Such contributions would be remarkable enough on their own, but alongside them, he has, for decades, taken on important leadership roles within and beyond his specialist field, both nationally and internationally. In the 1990s, he chaired two preeminent university departments of medicine, first at Stanford and then at Harvard's Brigham and Women's Hospital. Within his own specialty, but with a much broader reach, he also chaired the National Institutes of Health Cardiovascular Disease Advisory Committee. In 2004, he became Chancellor for Health Affairs at Duke University and President and CEO of the Duke University Medical Center. Over the next decade, he built it into one of the world's leading health systems, while also radically extending its global influence by establishing the Duke Global Health Institute and Duke NUS Medical School in Singapore. Outside academia, he co-founded in 2011 the non-governmental organization Innovations in Healthcare, in partnership with the World Economic Forum and McKinsey & Company, while his advice has been increasingly sought after by governments in the United States and around the world on health and medical strategies and risk. Professor Dzau has a tireless resolve to help build a better, healthier world. So you'll not be surprised to hear that stepping down from his administrative leadership at Duke in 2014 was far from the end of his extraordinary career. In that year, he was elected president of the US Institute of Medicine, reconstituted as the National Academy of Medicine, NAM, in 2015. He led its restructuring within the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, and developed its current strategy for innovation, action, and equity, plus global perspective. He uses this platform to further his conviction that health and science leaders can contribute significantly to solutions for broader social challenges under the model of bench to bedside to population to society that he promotes and exemplifies. This is reflected in the many initiatives NAM's launched under his leadership, such as the Commission on a Global Health Risk Framework, the International Human Gene Editing Initiative, the Committee on Emerging Science, Technology, and Innovation in Health and Medicine, and on women's health. As a leader in global health, he serves on the Global Preparedness Monitoring Board, co-convened by the WHO and World Bank, co-chaired the Global Health Summit scientific expert panel established by the G20 and European Commission, and has been a member of the Board of Health Governors of the World Economic Forum, chairing its Global Agenda Council on Personalized and Precision Medicine. Currently, he co-chairs the Science and Technology Expert Group of the International Preparedness Secretariat, initiated by the G7 in the wake of the COVID-19 health catastrophe, as part of the 100 Days mission to stem future pandemics at speed, the monkeypox virus that's broken out in Africa firmly in his sights. Retirement is clearly not an option. Meanwhile, Professor Dzau and NAM have set the US health sector the grand challenge of addressing climate change. This involves it needing to acknowledge and reduce its own carbon footprint, estimated to amount to as much as 8.5 of the US total carbon emissions, and to be well prepared for the medical consequences of us living in a hotter world, among increasingly violent weather events. This is all a long way from the one-room home in Hong Kong in which his family lived after moving from Shanghai when Professor Dzau was 5 years old. He'd been born in 1945, and his father had owned a chemical manufacturing company, but the move to Hong Kong meant leaving all their material prosperity behind. Life was hard in the aftermath of the ravages of World War II and civil war in China. That early hardship and the sacrifices parents made to rebuild their lives and give the young Victor and his two sisters a good education in Hong Kong helped shape his belief that out of adversity could come opportunity to move forward, and his resolve to train as a medical doctor. Unable to do the latter in Hong Kong, he successfully applied to McGill University in Montreal, Canada, where he completed a BSc in biology and then began his medical training. It was not a smooth passage. Facing multiple stresses, he even dropped out of a training program, but managed to land at Harvard's Brigham and Women's Hospital. A fellowship at Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard University followed, from which he built the multi-stranded career that I've already outlined. But Hong Kong had nonetheless left its own mark. Professor Dzau remains proud of his Chinese heritage and his upbringing in Hong Kong, and has never forgotten his childhood friends. Among them is Dr. Edgar Cheng Wai-kin, CUHK's former council chairman. With Dr. Cheng's encouragement and support, in 2018, Professor Dzau launched NAM's first ever International Health Policy Fellowship Program that enables early to mid-career CUHK scholars to gain experience in the Academy's policy shaping operations. Moreover, the poverty he witnessed in his childhood and the social values he developed in Hong Kong also helped shape his deep concern to tackle the inequities experienced by poorer communities, women, and minorities, which is reflected in his many national and global health missions. This is a quest he shares with his wife, Ruth, whom he met at McGill, and is a community leader, including as past president of Second Step, a charity that provides housing and support for the victims of domestic violence. With two daughters, Jacqueline and Marissa, and now grandchildren, family has been central to their lives. One mark of global impact is global recognition. In recognizing Professor Dzau today, we're in very good and highly international company. His many awards, far too many to be able to list here today, have been bestowed by distinguished institutions that currently span 3 continents. But beyond this, I wish to highlight the fact that he is not only a recipient, he's also a donor in yet another domain. His determination to focus the best minds on global health challenges led him in 2017 to establish the Victor J. Dzau Global Health Lecture Fund, which supports annual distinguished lectures at Duke, Harvard, and McGill universities. And he also has a distinguished lecture in cardiovascular medicine in his name at Stanford, and a professorship of medicine at Harvard. Professor Dzau is exemplary for the breadth of his vision and tireless accomplishments in revolutionizing the understanding and treatment of cardiovascular diseases, providing vital leadership for scientists to address wider health and social challenges, and informing global health policy around the world. Mr. Chairman, it's my great honor to present to you Professor Victor Joseph Dzau for the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa.
Mr. Chairman, I present Victor Joseph Dzau for admission to the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa.
By virtue of the authority vested in me, I admit you to the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa. Congratulations.
Nancy Jane Rothwell.
Universities as we know them, secular, independent communities of the mind, first emerged almost 1,000 years ago. Their underlying foundations stretch back much further still, to classical Greece. But their core concerns lie with today and tomorrow. We curate, interpret, and extend what is known, and we train emissaries to send into the future. And yet, the past on which we're built can constrain rather than inspire and liberate us if it becomes a source of dogma or unexamined and unchallenged habit, so that in some areas we do not lead, but slowly follow. England had universities long before it had a queen, let alone a woman as prime minister. But at the end of the year 2010, centuries after the coronation of its first Queen Elizabeth and decades after Margaret Thatcher's appointment, the country's elite Russell Group of 24 universities still had only one woman vice-chancellor, and the country's largest university had just appointed its own first to that role. We are honoring that woman today. Professor Dame Nancy Rothwell was appointed Vice-Chancellor of the University of Manchester in 2010 and held that post with great distinction for 14 years. This summer, she became a Professor Emeritus and Ambassador for the university. The underrepresentation of women in senior roles in academia and science is not a uniquely British failing. Just 6 years ago, women accounted for under 20% of Hong Kong's senior academic staff, according to the University Grants Committee's data, and across the world, only 17% of the top 200 universities in the Times Higher Education International Rankings were led by women. Overlooked talent abounds. We have a lot of ground to make up. Professor Rothwell is a physiologist and neuroscientist who has become a role model and champion for science, innovative leadership, and women. Yet she's also candidly reflected on what could have held her back. In addition to the time demands of academic leadership that make work-life balance almost impossible, and some deeply ingrained biases, women have tended to be more ready to think that if they don't meet all the specifications for a job, they shouldn't apply. Identically qualified men are more likely to give it a go. When Professor Rothwell was urged to apply for the post of Vice-Chancellor in 2010, after 3 years as Deputy Vice-Chancellor, she overcame that obstacle, impelled by her passion for the university that had been her academic home for more than 2 decades. She went on to become one of the country's longest-serving vice-chancellors, overseeing a community of 50,000 students and staff and an annual budget of £1.3 billion, with significant growth in student numbers, research income, and the fabric of the university. Her tenure is also marked by elevating the university to become ranked among the top 3 in the world for its commitments to social responsibility and sustainability. The latter includes concrete action to achieve net zero by 2038. A solar farm will produce 65% of its electricity needs when it opens in autumn 2025. Just one example of how this commitment will be achieved. Professor Rothwell's no stranger to CUHK. Last year, our 2 universities established a range of teaching and research collaborations, including the launch of a study option, allowing our School of Biomedical Sciences to earn both a CUHK BSc degree and a University of Manchester Master of Science in 4 years, the latter part spent in Manchester in either infection biology or tissue engineering for regenerative medicine. Her career journey has been far from conventional. The young Nancy Rothwell grew up in rural Lancashire in the north of England, loving the outdoors and playing on her uncle's miniature steam railway and farm. She's described her father as an eccentric biologist who kept the props of his science, such as skeletons and pickled things in bottles around the house, and a number of fast cars outside. He made biology interesting at home, but that didn't cross over into school, which managed to make the subject so boring that she gave it up at the age of 14 and took A-levels in maths, physics, and chemistry, whose teachers did relate the subjects to the world outside, plus art, for which she took herself to art school. She toyed with the idea of a career in art before realizing that she was unlikely to make a serious living from it, although as a doctoral student, she did help support herself by drawing and selling cartoons. Still further in the future, interest in the arts helped her to win respect beyond Manchester's science community. And those fast cars clearly had their own lasting influence as well. The racetrack remains one of her passions. From school, she applied to Queen Elizabeth College, which was later merged into King's College London, a place whose purely academic credentials were seriously enhanced by its location on Kensington High Street. Followers of London fashion at the time will know it as so convenient for Bieber. She also juggled her time to manage to captain the women's rugby team, play darts, spend 3 nights a week doing bar work, as well as holding down a part-time job in a market garden, all excellent training for a top university leader. By her 3rd year, following completion of a research dissertation, she knew her future lay in academia, convinced there was nothing more exciting than trying to understand the things around us, not least the human body. She achieved a first-class degree, and at the same college went on to complete her PhD in just 2 years, focused on the physiological mechanisms involved in the regulation of body weight, which became her area of specialism for the first chapter of her career. There seemed no end to her enthusiasm for her research, even volunteering herself for over- and underfeeding experiments to explore the role of metabolism in body weight. She recalls eating over 3,000 calories a day over a 3-week period, but only putting on 10 kilos, unlike some other participants who loaded on much more. Yet, in 1987, she did something rare in science. She switched fields to neuroscience. This was prompted by her unexpected discovery that the protein molecule interleukin-1, IL-1 for short, which she'd found to trigger weight loss during infection and disease, was also active in the brain's response to a stroke or other injury, and in its bad cop role, extended the damage. Moreover, it could be controlled through the IL-1 blocker that occurs naturally in the body and has been manufactured synthetically as a drug to treat arthritis. The finding was a shock within the Neuroscience Committee and was initially dismissed. When she relocated in 1987 to Victoria University of Manchester, which later formed part of the University of Manchester, she completed her transition to neuroscience and built on this research. Recognition followed. She rose to Professor of Physiology in 1994, was awarded a highly competitive Medical Research Council chair from 1998 to 2010, and in 2004 was appointed by the university as Vice President for Research and later as Deputy President. Throughout her tenure in senior leadership, she remained active in research, as she is now. Her current focus is on the role of inflammation in brain disease. Having patented the use of IL-1 inhibitors to prevent acute neurodegeneration, she's leading the first clinical trial of their use in stroke treatment. Professor Rothwell's charisma and passion for science has made her a sought-after science communicator, most famously in 1998 in delivering the Royal Society's Christmas lectures on The Secrets of Life, involving live experiments on stage and filmed by the BBC. Her commitment to both science and civic engagement has led her to take on numerous leadership and advisory roles. She was the founding president of the Royal Society of Biology, a co-chair of the Prime Minister's Council for Science and Technology, chair of the Russell Group and the first woman to hold that chair, and a council or board member of the Medical Research Council, Cancer Research UK, the Royal Society, and the UK Biobank Board, among others. Beyond academia and public service, she was also a non-executive director of AstraZeneca from 2005 to 2015. Her achievements and contributions have been recognized at the highest levels. Amongst her awards, she's been elected as a Fellow of the Royal Society and appointed Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire. The City of Manchester will not forget her many contributions. This summer, her portrait was unveiled in its Whitworth Art Gallery, and the university's new engineering research and teaching facility, the largest in Europe, was named after her. She's also been invited to be an ambassador for the university and expects to continue to engage in issues facing higher education locally and globally. Manchester's fame, of course, extends beyond the arts and education, and here too she's made her contribution as a member of the Old Trafford Regeneration Task Force, established by the owners of Manchester United Football Club, who've themselves invested heavily in the university. Now that is surely a virtuous circle. Mr. Chairman, it is my great honor to present to you Professor Dame Nancy Rothwell, who's been a visionary beacon as a university leader, scientist, and science communicator for the award of the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa.
Mr. Chairman, I present Nancy Jane Rothwell for admission to the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa.
By virtue of the authority vested in me, I admit you to the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa.
Tong Ka-shing Carlson.
Hong Kong's status and future as a leading financial hub depends on opportunities connecting China and the rest of the world for the one part, and on the integrity of its business environment and asset management and banking ecosystem for the other. Indeed, China's national plans recognize that Hong Kong is ideally placed to build on such a role, thanks to the quality and maturity of its services. Today, despite an economic downturn in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, its stock market remains one of the largest in the world, with a market capitalization of 36.9 trillion Hong Kong dollars at the end of September, and average daily turnover of 169.2 billion. And supporting the business world, from the largest listed companies to small market stalls, are the city's accounting services, with the big four global accounting firms, household names such as KPMG, enjoying the scale and experience to lead the way. Yet these firms, totaling close to 7,000 large and small, would be empty shells without their leadership and the 35,000 people they employ. Beyond the commercial world, accountants have huge contributions to play on the boards and committees of any organization that has a significant budget to manage, whether that be in education, sports, or even music, as three examples, as well as with regulatory authorities or serving directly within the corporate sector. Chartered accountants operate in a far more colorful landscape than their typically monochrome reputation implies. Today's honorand, Dr. Tong Ka-shing, a chartered accountant and former chairman of KPMG in Hong Kong and the Asia Pacific, and currently chairman of Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing Limited and director of the World Federation of Exchanges, has had key leadership roles in public services across all these sectors and more. Since his retirement from KPMG in 2011, he's strengthened Hong Kong's asset management as chairman of the Securities and Futures Commission from 2012 to 2018, supported the development of its higher education as chairman of the University Grants Committee from 2016 to 2022, and as chairman of the Hong Kong Sports Institute from 2012 to 2017, contributed to a greatly improved ecosystem in which Hong Kong's future Olympians could be nurtured and thrive. Carlson Tong's mentor at KPMG was its former chairman for Hong Kong and China, the late Marvin Zheng Gintong. He had taken on many major public service roles himself and encouraged Carlson to use his own accounting knowledge for the public good by doing likewise. Zheng put him forward for various service roles, notably first as honorary treasurer and then as vice chairman of the Hong Kong Chinese Orchestra at the crucial time of its transition to independence. He remains an honorary advisor, which makes it no surprise that a group of young musicians affiliated with the orchestra performed in the halls of HKEX for a recent anniversary celebration. During his time in the SFC, he oversaw the launch of several major policy initiatives, including the introduction of the landmark Mainland Hong Kong Stock Connect program, allowing mainland investors to invest abroad and for international funds to access China via the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and partner markets in the mainland. Today, southbound investment into Hong Kong accounts for up to 20% of HKEX's daily turnover. He also tightened oversight of the market, exacting nearly 4 billion Hong Kong dollars in fines and compensation in several high-profile cases of wrongdoing, and taking steps to enforce rules requiring the person or company that committed misconduct to compensate investors who've suffered losses as a result. All his services are important to this and Hong Kong's other universities. For without a sound and robust financial environment, there'd be fewer opportunities for our graduates and less funding from the public purse for our teaching and research. Yet, Dr. Tong has contributed even more directly as the recent chairman of the UGC. During his tenure, he secured from the government an injection of a massive $20 billion into the Research Endowment Fund to support Hong Kong's development as a pioneering technological hub. In addition, he oversaw steps to enhance governance and accountability of the sector, teaching quality, and provision for students with special needs, as well as elite athletes. The latter included the launch of the UGC Student Athlete Learning Support and Admission Scheme, with 100 million Hong Kong dollars in funding set aside for universities to provide flexible support to athletes, enabling them to compete at the highest levels internationally and find pathways for higher education and new careers after retiring from competition. The steps he's taken to support the rise of elite sports in Hong Kong in fact began when he joined the board of the Hong Kong Sports Institute and was later appointed chairman. In that period, he helped to secure over 100 million Hong Kong dollars from the Hong Kong Jockey Club to build a multi-purpose sports complex for Paralympic athletes, and negotiated the first agreements with universities, including CUHK, to cater for the needs of athletes, among other developments. These were visionary initiatives with consequences. Hong Kong SAR is a long-established powerhouse in the Paralympics, but not in the Summer Olympics. So there was an outpouring of joy and pride when athletes from Hong Kong won the first Olympic gold medal for Hong Kong in the delayed 2020 Tokyo Olympics. And the 2 silvers and 3 bronzes won alongside it demonstrated the broader strength of what had been achieved. That was no transient achievement, as 2024's 4 medals, 2 gold and 2 bronze, demonstrate. I'm particularly happy to note that one of those golds is the most recent addition to CUHK alumni's trove of medals. Our congratulations not only to Vivian Kong, but also to the vision of a road to excellence that has surely lifted all our athletes. Dr. Tong had no idea what he wanted to do, let alone that he could contribute so much to his city, when in 1971 he left school, St. Paul's Coeducational College, after Form 5, unable to secure one of the limited places for A-levels, the senior secondary school leaving qualification that Hong Kong then used for university admission. Instead, he found audit work on the lowest rung of a local accountancy firm, earning just 200 Hong Kong dollars a month. However, his ambition was sparked by observing the role of a qualified accountant, and he decided to set out on the journey to become a chartered accountant. That meant leaving Hong Kong and completing a business diploma at a college in Wales, which allowed him to begin a 5-year training contract open to non-graduates. He chose to do this with a small firm in Cardiff. After slogging through the program and qualifying in 1979, he moved to Pete Marwick Mitchell's Cardiff office, met his Welsh wife, Jill, and expected to remain in Wales for the rest of his career. He did stay with the firm, which later merged to form KPMG, or Kleinfeld Piet Marwick Goerdella, for that duration, but not in Wales. In 1984, an assignment in London led to a chance meeting with a partner from Hong Kong, resulting in him being invited to return as a senior audit manager. He would then go on to become a partner himself in 1989 and rise much further, culminating in his appointment as chairman of KPMG China and Hong Kong in 2007, and as chairman of the Asia-Pacific region and a member of KPMG's global board in 2009, while he and Jill raised their 3 children in the city. He built up a particular expertise in merger and acquisition deals and initial public offerings, and in 1990 managed the first public listing on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange of a mainland company, Hai Hong Maritime Marine Paint, a subsidiary of China Merchants. He spent a year working to prepare the Sheko-based business, which was 200 times oversubscribed. This paved the way for Hong Kong's increasing role in connecting the mainland and its capital market, as well as his own journey towards leadership in asset management and its regulation. Among his many other roles over the last 2 decades, he's also been an independent non-executive director of Standard Chartered plc and the Hong Kong International Airport Authority, chairman of Aviation Security Company Limited, a member of the Exchange Fund Advisory Committee of the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, and chairman of the English Schools Foundation. All have benefited not merely from his acumen with numbers, but from his strategic insight, diligence, open-mindedness, and charismatic skill in building consensus. His remarkable contributions to society and education are reflected in his many awards, among them the Gold Bauhinia Star by the Hong Kong SAR government in 2019, preceded by a Silver Bauhinia Star in 2014. In 2019, he was selected as a Fellow of the Hong Kong Academy of Finance, and in 2022 became the first Hong Kong person to be presented with the Outstanding Achievement Award by the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales. He's also an honorary fellow of the Hong Kong Securities and Investment Institute, among other honorary awards. Mr. Chairman, it's my great honor and my pleasure to present to you Dr. Tong Ka-shing, who's contributed enormously to the integrity and competitiveness of Hong Kong for the award of the degree of Doctor of Social Science, honoris causa.
Mr. Chairman, I present Tong Ka-shing Carlson for admission to the degree of Doctor of Social Science, honoris causa.
By virtue of the authority vested in me, I admit you to the degree of Doctor of Social Science, honoris causa.
Professor Dame Nancy Rothwell will now deliver an address.
Council Chairman, Vice-Chancellor, graduates, staff, students and guests, I am delighted to speak on behalf of myself and my fellow honorary graduates, Professor Victor Joseph Dzau, Dr Tong Ka-shing Carlson, and Ms Deng Xiaohua, who sadly cannot be with us today. We are honoured and humbled to have been selected from so many you could have chosen to bestow on us honorary doctorates of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Thank you. It is a particular pleasure for me because the University of Manchester, which, as you heard, I was President and Vice-Chancellor of until just a few months ago, has had a strong strategic alliance with CUHK for several years, from which we have certainly seen great benefit. I am in fact a regular visitor to Hong Kong, and indeed will be back again just next month. That's partly because we have so many alumni and friends here, and I'm particularly happy that some of them could join us at this ceremony today, particularly noting several valued members of the University of Manchester's Hong Kong Foundation. CUHK is only just over 60 years old. By contrast, the University of Manchester is celebrating its 200th birthday this year. But in that relatively short time, CUHK has grown and risen rapidly to be a most esteemed organisation, not just in Asia, but globally. Of course, we all stand on the shoulders of giants, but I must acknowledge the great contribution of Vice-Chancellor Rocky Chuan to this success. Set in a beautiful campus and home to about 30,000 students, CUHK is now recognised for its excellence in education for both local and international students, and for its research and innovation. Its 4 key research themes, China tradition and modernity, innovative biomedicine, information and automation technology, and environmental sustainability, seem most apt for a forward-looking university. CUHK also has a unique role in Hong Kong as a conduit for Chinese history and culture. Your college system provides a welcome home for students, and the campus in Shenzhen, which I visited just as it was opening, was an innovative move that cements CUHK's role in the Greater Bay Area. Many universities across the world are feeling pressures today. This is certainly the case in the UK, though it does feel like we have a government now that is looking a little more favourably on universities. I would argue there has never been a time when we have needed more outstanding universities, such as CUHK, to train the next generation of global citizens and to tackle world problems, such as climate change, poverty and inequality, geopolitical turmoil, biodiversity, global pandemics, antimicrobial resistance, and much more. Universities are the very places where we are tackling these problems, often working hand in hand with other institutions, with industry, and with our governments. Just a few weeks ago, Rocky and I, and perhaps others in the audience, attended the Times Higher Education World Academic Summit at the University of Manchester. There was much discussion of these topics. Rocky spoke passionately about the importance of training our students, not just in their chosen discipline, but also in addressing wider challenges, urging them to contribute in many ways to society, to question, to collaborate, and to take on wider responsibilities. Universities can play an even more important role in society in times such as now of geopolitical unrest. Our staff and students collaborate and partner with many, irrespective of their different cultures, religions, and political views. Students mix with peers from very different backgrounds and countries, learning to understand and appreciate their different perspectives and to respect their beliefs. Indeed, collaboration between universities was again stressed at the recent summit as being much more important than competition in the 21st century. CUHK is an excellent example of a collaborative university with many global partners. I look forward to continuing to work with CUHK in several of my new roles. So much for retirement. And I want to thank you again on behalf of my fellow honorary graduates for this great recognition, for your hospitality and for your friendship. We give you our very best wishes for what I'm sure will be many future successes of CUHK. Thank you so much.
I declare this congregation closed.
請起立 please rise.